Welcome to my channel. His hand stayed steady on my shoulder when I thought he'd step forward. Instead, his voice slipped low and certain. No, you start. The room spun differently after that. She was waiting. He was watching. And suddenly, all of it was on me. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're subscribed. These stories only get bolder, and I don't want you missing the next one. The knock was lighter than I expected, almost hesitant, but it carried through the walls like it belonged here. I glanced at him, waiting for the explanation. He only smiled, that calm, measured smile that never gave too much away. He opened the door. She stood there, younger, polished, holding herself with a confidence I didn't expect. For Amime, I froze, unsure if I'd misread everything. But when his voice came from behind me, smooth and certain, it told me I hadn't. Come in, he said, just like that. No hesitation, no explanation. She stepped across the threshold as if she already knew where this was leading. I told myself it was for him, that this was his indulgence, his fantasy playing out in front of me. But the way she looked at me, not of him, left me unsteady. My dress, my earrings, the way I'd done me hair. I had prepared for him, not for her. I tried to steady my breathing, telling myself I'd watch from the side, that he'd lead the way. But even then, before anything else happened, I had the feeling I was wrong. She didn't sit far away. She chose the armchair beside mine, close enough that I felt the edge of her presence without her even moving. Her eyes stayed on me, calm, steady, almost expectant. A glance toward him, waiting for his signal, certain he would cross the room first, but instead he leaned down behind me, his hand brushing lightly against my shoulder. Not me, he whispered. You. The words lodged in me, heavy and electric. I blinked at him, almost certain I'd misheard, but the look in his eyes told me I hadn't. He wasn't going to move. Not yet. She shifted slightly closer, still silent, still watching me with that same calm patience. The air in the room felt heavier, like the walls had pulled tighter around us. I searched for something to say, but nothing came. My throat was dry, my chest tight, and all I could do was sit there as his hand stayed warm on my shoulder, steadying me without pushing. Her hand rested on the arm of the chair between us, fingers loose, waiting, not demanding, not rushing, just there, close enough that I'd have to decide whether or not to bridge the gap. And in that moment, I realized exactly what he had set in motion. For a long moment, none of us moved. I sat caught between a steady hand and her waiting silence, aware of every small sound in the room, the faint tick of the clock, the creak of the chair as she shifted slightly closer. Her fingers were still there, resting between us. A quiet invitation I couldn't ignore. My pulse quickened as I lowered my hand, hesitating just above hers before finally letting my skin brush against her knuckles. She turned her hand over slowly, deliberate as if she'd been waiting for me to choose. When her fingers laced with mine, a current shot through me, tightening my breath, heard the faintest exhale behind me, his presence close, heavy, but unmoving. He hadn't told me what to do beyond that single instruction. And yet, I could feel the weight of his eyes steady on us, watching as if this had always been the plan. She leaned in, closing the space between us. Her perfume, soft, unfamiliar, warm, wrapped around me, blurring my focus. I felt the brush of her hair against my cheek before her lips found mine. Slow and certain. For an instant, the world went quiet. Just her and me, and the shock of realizing how easily I'd crossed the line he'd drawn for me. Her hand slipped higher along my arm, steadying me as though she knew how unsteady I felt. My body leaned forward before my mind could catch up, pulled into her warmth, and then movement behind me. Not words this time, not a whisper, just the shift of him rising from his chair. The spell between us held for a heartbeat longer, but I knew what was coming next. He rose without hurry, and the room seemed to tilt with him. I didn't turn right away. I felt him first, the measured weight of each step across the rug, the way the quiet shifted as if it were making space. My breath settled into the pause he gave me, long enough for my nerves to catch up with my want. He stopped behind me, not touching, not yet, just there, The air at my neck changed temperature in front of me. She waited, steady, patient, a half smile that said she'd expected this timing all along. His hand found the back of my chair, then the small of my back for Mannering. "Stay with her," he murmured. "Boy's close enough to graze my ear." It wasn't a command, it was permission wrapped in certainty. I leaned forward again, and she met me the way she had before, warm and unhurried. The soft sleeve of my midnight blue dress brushed her wrist. My thin gold earrings tapped my jaw as I tilted toward her. I'd chosen a simple chain necklace earlier, cool metal at my collarbone. Now something elegant for him. It felt suddenly perfect for all three of us. He didn't take over. He guided a slow slide of his palm along my arm, a light pressure at my waist that drew me an inch closer, then held me there. I followed his pace without thinking. She matched it without effort. I realized I was being framed, centered between their patience and their certainty, and the awareness sent a clean shiver through me. She laughed softly under her breath, more a flutter than a sound, and the faint citrus of her perfume wrapped around us. I closed my eyes for a second and counted the layers, her hand and mine, his steadiness at my back, the rustle of my dress, the quiet, even rhythm of three people breathing the same air. Nothing rushed, nothing stalled. "Just like that," he said, almost too low to catch. His breath skimmed the edge of my ear. The words traveled through me faster than sound should. I let my shoulders loosen. She caught that small surrender and pulled me into it. No force, only invitation. He answered by tightening his hand at my waist, not to move me, but to keep me right where everything lined up. A small adjustment, a new angle, and suddenly every part of me seemed to register a tons. The warmth of her cheek, the cool brush of my necklace, the steady weight of his palm, the safe pressure of the room narrowing to this single point. Time didn't break. It stretched. The wall clock ticked, distant and unimportant. My dress whispered when I shifted. Her hair grazed my temple. His thumb traced a slow, reassuring path that told me he was tracking every breath I took. I felt pulled in two directions that somehow moved together like two waves finding W shore. "Easy," he whispered, and I realized I'd been holding tension I didn't need. I let it go and felt the scene grow in size without getting louder. He stayed close enough that I could lean back into him if I wanted. She stayed close enough that I didn't have to. The pace rose on its own, not faster, fuller. She drew me forward, has steadied. She teased the line. He sighted. Every small choice I made, where to lean, how long to linger, was answered by both of them, as if we'd agreed on this choreography hours ago. I understood then that he hadn't just planned the moment. He had planned the space for it to breathe. I opened my eye as her lashes were lowered. The molest curve lived at the corner of her mouth. Behind me, he was a calm presence I could feel down to my heels. Grounded, certain, a center of gravity that kept everything aligned. My earrings brushed my skin again when I turned. My necklace tapped a quiet beat that matched the pulse in my throat. The details were ordinary and somehow overwhelming. He lifted my chin with two fingers, not to claim me, but to slow me. "Take your time," he said. It landed like a promise I did. I let the seconds expand until they felt wider than the room. We found a rhythm that didn't need words. Her hands mapped the safe edges. His hands kept me inside them. When I leaned toward warmth, I felt the press of steadiness at my back. When I leaned into steadiness, I felt warmth reach for me. The motion became a loop I didn't want to break. A careful braid of touch and breath that made me forget where one ended and the other began. Somewhere in that long middle, the sweet stretched center where nothing had to hurry. I realized I'd stopped thinking about who asked for what. This wasn't a gift he'd offered me or display I'd offered him. It was a corridor he'd opened and then walked down beside me, letting muse the pace while he kept the door from closing. The heat climbed without show. My dress felt lighter. The room felt closer. She drew a sigh out of method barely existed. He answered with a firmer hold that told me he heard it. I let my head tip back just enough to find his shoulder. He anchored it with his hand and left it there. She smiled like we had just arrived at the place she'd been waiting to welcome me to. It crested, not in a flash, like a tide that finally met its line. Every sensor rang together, her breath, his whisper, the faint, cool kiss of metal at my collarbone, the safe weight at my waist, the warmth where I chose to press forward. I hovered there, held and holding long enough to feel the moment become the only thing that existed. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need to. I let it rise, let it fill, let it pour through the shape we'd made between the three of us. And when I knew there was nowhere higher for it to go, I didn't pull back. I let it all happen. Nights like that don't leave you the same. What began as his idea ended as something I never thought I'd allow. And yet I didn't stop. Be honest, do you wish you were there too? If you were, what would you be doing? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss the next story. Your support keeps them coming.